Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Con Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media. That's AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can always read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story, I have analysis right now after every pick that Washington makes in the draft. You get my analysis, my take on how they fit with the organization. Then you get also some scouts' takes, people who work for ESPN who will provide their take on each pick as well to get some in-depth analysis on everybody that Washington has selected. And there have been a few. There were 5 on Friday. So there you go. And it's been quite a busy day. So I'm going to go over all what's happened today. And as I sit here, it's early Saturday morning, but there was a lot that happened on Saturday. We're going to get into the picks. And one thing I'll say about the picks, I'm going to get into, listen, there was a busy day. So Jayden Daniels met with the media. And then again, they selected 5 players. So one of the things that to me, a big theme for Saturday was with the type of player they're bringing in and the type of the descriptions they give of these players: toughness, violent. They focus on guys who are leaders, team captains. So as Adam Peters told us afterwards, like, they fit as commanders. Now, every time a new group comes in, they always say they have a guy that they want for their version of who they want in this organization. And not everybody always follows through to that. Listen, even when Scott McCloughan was here, he had this reputation and stuff, but, and he would say, oh, he's a football player. And there are people here who would say, you wouldn't believe who he sometimes called a quote unquote football player. So there was an idea for what they wanted, but some people here didn't feel that was always followed through as to the guy they picked did not match that sort of desire. So we'll see what happens here. But when you look at these guys that they drafted tonight or today, they do certainly fit a certain mold. And I think these are guys, like, one of the things that I look at, and, there were all sorts of needs that they had to get. We know the needs, and they did fill some holes. We'll see how these guys do. But I think what they also took the tact of, get the best guys in here, because you cannot build a good roster without good talent. And so you don't force the need, you get good players first and foremost. If you want to build I always say, like, if you want to have a smart team, you draft smart players. You want to draft a tough team, you draft tough players. If you want to be a good team, you draft good players. So sometimes it may mean it's like, why did you take a guy at this spot? And there was one guy that you could say that about here. They did draft a defensive tackle. So why would they do that? Well, I'll get into that in a minute, but it speaks to, I think, their approach to roster building. They need to build a good roster. And it's funny because I heard from somebody out in San Francisco who said, like, Adam Peters is doing what they do in San Francisco, which is strengthen the defensive line every chance you can get. So that's what Adam Peters was doing. And that's why they went in a couple different, or in one direction in particular, in the second round. So I'll get into that in a minute, but let's start with Jayden Daniels, because listen, he's still the big topic, because how he goes is how things are going to go. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on him, but I just want to get to his press conference and what was said. And then we'll get into each pick, and I'll give you my little take on them based on what you hear and based on what you know. So, but with Daniels, our first chance to meet him in person. And yes, he's a slender guy, and we all know that. And we all know that he's going to have to protect himself. So that's not going to change, but he comes here with extraordinary talent. And they, it's funny because I heard this from somebody early in the morning, and Adam Peters said it too, that they felt like he was the number one player in the draft. Now, teams can always say that, but I'm just repeating what they say. And you usually hear that guys are saying something like that. And even with, like, Johnny Newton, the defensive tackle I talked about, they had him rated as a first round pick. And in fact, when Quinn called him, he even said, I can't believe you're still here. Anyway, as far as Daniels goes, he was described to me as an unassuming guy. And I think that's kind of how he is. And I think he understands who he is and what he needs to do. And he also But he also said, nothing is given to me. It's not a given. It's not a given I'm a starter week one. I've got to earn it. I've got to put in the work. I've got to learn the playbook, earn the respect of my teammates, and go out there and try to win games. So he's not coming in here boasting of what he's going to do. He's not coming in here saying he's going to tear up the league or anything like that. He did say that, he looks at guys like a Tom Brady or Peyton Manning and how they conducted themselves as the faces of the franchise, how they carried themselves as franchise guys. And he said, hopefully one day he's in their shoes. You'll never see, he said, you never see any off the field issues about them. They carry themselves with a high standard, and I want to be in their shoes one day. Hopefully I get there, but I've got my own dream, my own road to take. So I think, I'm always a little bit leery if guys come and say, I want to be a Hall of Famer. And to be honest, Dwayne Haskins used to talk like that. And it's like, sometimes you just have to say, well, guys who are Hall of Famers, I don't think come in saying they want to be that. You come in and you work like that, and eventually you become that. But I think it's good to emulate guys who are in those roles, because those are the guys who did it. So if it worked for them, maybe it could work for you. So if you take that approach, and the one thing I've always heard about Daniels is that's the approach he takes in terms of how he works and how he likes to do extra work, and how he looks for extra advantages, which is why he did that virtual reality headset stuff to help him at LSU. And people who talked to him said that he told them it improved his game by about 75% or so. It just gave him such an advantage. And he basically gave him more reps and more reps and more reps. And he just got used to the speed of the game a little bit better because of it. But that's the kind of stuff, when you want to be a great player, you have to put in extra stuff. And if he did it at LSU, and we'll see what he does here, but that's why he's in this position. He was asked about the futility basically of this position in Washington. And he said he didn't feel any pressure. He's going to come in and be me. He did pointed to Doug Williams in the back. I know Doug Williams has a relationship with him. I don't know that they're super tight by any means, but they do have a relationship. And yes, he has talked to Robert Griffin III. So he's well aware. And when he was asked about the history of the quarterback position here, he said he pointed to Doug and said, the man sitting back over there, Doug Williams. And he, obviously he knows he's the first Black quarterback to win a Super Bowl. Pointed out Robert Griffin III, who was not here, but he pointed him out mainly because of the excitement he brought to the fan base. I will say, for a guy who just got here, he knows a lot about this franchise. He knows a lot about some of the players he's playing with. He rattled off some of the names. So there's a preparation to him where, sometimes guys come in and they don't know a whole lot about a team. This kid knows a lot about this place already, which I think is a good sign. And then we were able to talk to Josh Harris about him, who he clearly understands what a quarterback can do. And what Harris told us, he's like, we all know what a good quarterback can do in this league. Last season was difficult for him, he said, and difficult for the city, as you all know. But the result is they had the second pick. And if you get this guy right, it can certainly expedite the process. And then finally, we did talk to Dan Quinn, and I hope to have the video of that up here soon. But what thing Quinn was talking about was, obviously he's going to go on and on about him. He called him a rare competitor, but the one thing he liked is the pressure he puts on a defense. And when I was at the owners' meetings in Orlando, one of the things, and I wrote a story on this, and hopefully you guys saw it, but from Quinn's perspective, like, he's a defensive guy, right? And all defensive coaches I know hate facing guys like Jayden Daniels. That's what I always came back to in this process. When someone's like, well, what do you think? And like, you hear things. And there's always that, that's small percentage of maybe it goes this way, but you keep going back. But this is what I know. And this is exactly why these guys like that are like Jayden Daniels are dangerous, because Quinn said, I'm very excited that a number of defensive coordinators have to spend extra hours and sleepless nights in the off season. That's what guys like this can do. Now, again, stay healthy. So anyway, but it was interesting to me because, like I said, he came across as a confident guy, but he also came across as unassuming and not a boastful guy. So I think those are all good things. And I will say, I think they're going to limit try to reduce some of the pressure on him and not make him the automatic face of the franchise, because who would have done that? The previous owner. And in some cases, I'm sure other owners would as well. But in this case, it seems like they're going to limit some of that pressure on him. For example, they're having that big fan fest on Saturday. he's not going to be there. And I do think that part of that is, hey, no need to put him in those situations just yet. Kind of make him, or it's almost like if you're a freshman on campus and you're on the team, like you're not going to become the star of the team or the face of that team or the college team, whatever, in your first year. So they're going to do things a little bit differently to kind of bring you along a certain way and reduce that sort of those, not so much the expectations, because they're going to be high, but just blend in, right? And then grow as a leader, grow in your role. And one of the things they talked about too is having Zach Ertz here and Austin Eckler, guys who can be in that huddle, who are leaders that can reduce that burden or that pressure on on Daniels to come in and be that guy right away. Come in, learn the playbook, learn your teammates, learn the offense, go from there. And it's funny because one thing Dan Quinn said is that a benefit for Daniels is that this offense is new to everybody. So if he had come into a situation where the coordinator's been there for a couple of years and everybody's been in that offense for a couple of years, then he's the one learning everything and having to catch up to everybody else. Well, now they're going to be going at about the same pace because, again, he just got here. And how much that will help, I don't know, but what it means is he's not going to be so far behind everybody else. So that's a good thing for him. But it was interesting to meet him and to talk to people and just how excited people are about having him, because I mean, I'm telling you, even talking to people privately, this is the guy that a lot of them like, but I will tell you, most of them did not know that he was going to be the guy for sure. They were a lot like everybody else, like myself and probably like some of you. Even if you said it's going to be this guy, you didn't know that. I could have said that too. I wouldn't have known that. I could have just said, but for sure, you may have felt that. And I thumbs up on that. But for here, like there are people here, they thought it was going to be him, but they weren't sure they didn't know for sure. That's how tight a lid they kept on this whole entire process. And kudos to them, man. That's a good way to do things. And, it worked as far as you got the guy, you kept that under wraps and all that. And there were clearly a lot of signs along the way. And especially when you look back, there are things you look back and say, okay, it was, it had nothing to do with signing Marcus Mariota. I know that keeps coming up, but that was not it. But things they said along the way. I mean, shoot, Dan Quinn told the Junkies a few months ago, they did a great job of doing a word association game. And one of with each quarterback. And when he came to Jayden Daniels, Dan Quinn said game changer. And at that moment, I'm like, well, it's a wrap, but you still don't know because you hear things throughout the process. But when I kept coming back to that. I was like, he called him a game changer. I mean, that's kind of a big deal. You draft game changers. So anyway, there you go. But anyway, that was Jayden Daniels. So it was good to meet him, good to, or at least get to see him in person and talk to the others. Trades, free agents, quarterbacks, and all kinds of adventures await the Commanders this offseason. Looking for an adventure of your own? The Adventure Park at Sandy Spring has you covered. The country's largest ropes course and zipline park, located in Montgomery County, Maryland, is now open. Named Best Amusement Park and Climbing Destination in the DMV 2 years in a row, the Adventure Park at Sandy Spring is perfect for birthdays, corporate outings, groups, and families. With challenges anywhere from beginner to expert, there is something for all skill levels. Anytime you're thinking about reaching new heights, make sure you know before you go. The Adventure Park at Sandy Spring is the only ACCT accredited park in Maryland or Virginia. Staying on the ground, give axe throwing a try. You can throw at traditional targets or play any number of interactive games. You can even upload your own image. So there you have it, folks. Climbing, ziplining, axes, food, and bonfires right in your backyard. Reserve your adventure today at www.theadventurepark.com/Kime. That's www.theadventurepark.com/Kime. Now, let's get on to the day 2 picks because there's 5 of them and it was a busy night. So we're going to go through each one of them, just a couple minutes on each guy and get you set up for day 3. They have 3 picks on day 3. And unless they trade. So let's start with the defensive tackle, Johnny Newton from Illinois. That's the one where you say, okay, that is a best player available pick, period. Now, Quinn comes from San Francisco. They always address that defensive line. They always had guys there. And when you look at it, like a couple years ago, said the same thing with Fedarian Mathis. Well, you got Deron Payne could be a free agent. He could do this. Well, I will say there are a couple of things. One, Mathis hasn't made an impact as a second round pick, and he's a rotational guy. But he hasn't made that impact where you can sit there and say, like, okay, if one of these guys, Allen or Payne, if they end up moving on after this year or whatever, can that guy ascend to that? Well, you can't say for sure by any means that he could do that. And he's not this group's pick. And John Ridgway is kind of this group's pick because he played for Dan Quinn in Dallas. And I know they picked him up from Dallas, which means that they had him on the practice squad, of course. But I also, talking to people down there at the time, they had hoped to keep him. So I think that Quinn does like him, but those two are very different players than Newton. Newton is more along the lines of Payne and Allen, which is a guy who can be a disruptive force inside. He plays a 3 technique, can play some nose, but he's a little bit small. He's only about 305, 310 in that range. Not great length and all that, but super quick off the ball. And I think, again, the word violence is used a bit with him. So I think that's, relentless. That's another word used to describe him. Again, not great measurements, but he plays a certain way. And that's what you want. And, I think Quinn likes the violence that he plays with, because that's something he always brings up for any player. And they said they had a first round grade on him, did not expect him to be there. This was the result of a trade. If you hadn't heard, they traded with the Eagles and traded back in the second round. There was no tackle. There were no tackles at that spot. Now they could have drafted that corner Cooper DeJean in the second round. We'll get to the corners in a minute. But with Newton, so part of the other thing is too, listen, like John Allen, Deron Payne, been together for a few years, very good. Allen has no more guaranteed money on that contract. I don't know what they're going to do with him. Okay. I don't know if they're going to do anything with the contract. The last time I checked, there had been no movement with that, but usually those kind of things get started in the late spring, or they could just move on after this year from him. And now you got Newton. So, you're getting that younger group to come in and be the next wave of Washington Commanders. So that's where, and again, he's a different player from Mathis. Mathis should be more of a run stopper, because that's what he was brought here to do, play over the nose and be a big guy who can handle the middle. Well, with Quinn's defense, they like those guys like Newton, super quick and can move along, move to some different spots along the line, mostly a 3 technique, but again, super quick off the ball and cause a lot of disruption and havoc in the backfield. That's the thing I think that just jumps out about him the most. So, and again, he's not the same player. Those other guys, Ridgway and Mathis, are run stoppers. They needed another guy in that interior who could provide a pass rush, and that's Newton. He'll be part of that rotation almost for sure, because these guys really liked him. If they had a first round grade on him, you're expecting an immediate impact. And so that's going to be interesting to see how that happens. So the next pick in that second round, I will tell you, like, those second round picks went over really well with people. I don't know how you took them, but I can tell you other people around the NFL, when you listen to analysts or talk to people, they really like these picks. And Mike Samerstill from Michigan, slot cornerback, Nick Saban called him pound for pound, maybe maybe the best player in the draft pound for pound. Kind of doesn't get better than having a guy like Saban saying something like that. And listen, I'm an Ohio State guy. Kid's a terrific cornerback, he's very physical. And, it's funny because I had John Jansen on here the other day on the podcast. So I did text with him, just like, hey, they got him. And he said, he's an excellent player. He said, you'll love him. He's a really good player, but a great leader. And when we had him on the Zoom, that comes across like he certainly comes across as a smart kid. He comes across somebody who's a mature kid and knows the right things to say, and et cetera. So I think the communication skills for a guy like that were really good. And as a corner, you want those good communication skills. He has them. So I think that's one of the things that they fell in love with was just the type of person he is. In addition to watching him on the field, he was a playmaker. 6 picks this year, I think it was. So those kind of ball skills are what they want. He is a slot guy. He's a little over 5'9", so he's not a big guy, but he plays tough. He plays physical, and that's, again, when you're trying to change a culture of a team, you bring in guys like this. Just like when they brought Terry McLaurin in 2018, those kind of guys can really change the mindset and the mentality of an offense or a defense or a team, whatever. The more guys you have like that, it's so much better for your organization. And I think Samuelson fits that kind of has that kind of ability to be not just a help on the field, but a culture changer type. And again, when McLaurin came out, I felt he was that same kind of guy. So, and I know these guys felt like he was kind of the heart and soul of the Michigan team. JJ McCarthy was a big part of that, but they felt like this guy was the guy. And they one of the things that sold him on him, he played receiver first. So when they were at the pro day, they liked how he was running routes, that they felt he was running routes as good or better than what Michigan was doing with what some of their other guys were doing. Then at the dinner, they were really impressed with him there as well. So I think that's a really, really solid pick. I think that's going to be a pick that people just flat out love because he can play. Now, they still need another outside corner. I think they need more help there because we don't know with St. Juice how he's going to fare in this defense. And I still want to see more from Emmanuel Forbes. I don't think it's as simple as, hey, they changed the scheme. Now this is going to work for him. It wasn't just the scheme last year, folks, with him. And I think people have to wake up to that fact. He's got to do stuff on his own. And then you have to see, can he play this style? Can he play the way they want? And yes, I do think he will get better coaching for sure. That will help. That will help a lot. So good pick there. And then next pick in the third round, they had 3 picks in the third round, tight end Ben Sinnott from Kansas State. Another good pick. And again, another guy who's physical, versatile. He can play tight end. He can block along the line. He can block as a fullback. And Adam Peters, who of course comes from San Francisco, compared his blocking ability to Kyle Juszczyk or George Kittle. Kittle, excellent blocker. Obviously, he's not at their level with it yet. Those guys are like Pro Bowlers and all pros. But I think it was more just like he saw some of what they can do. He saw that in Sinnott as well. And, showed pretty good hands at Kansas State, sure-handed guy, and can run the tight end route tree. And, they like to play. They're going to want to play a lot of 12 personnel. So when Cliff Kingsbury was at Arizona, they were, I think, in the last 3 years of his tenure there, they ran 12 personnel, with 2 tight ends. They ran it the 7th most of anybody in the NFL. So that's going to be a big part of this offense. You had Zach Ertz, you have John Bates as a blocker, but you need another guy who can be a dual threat. And that's what this guy can add. And then you add in the fact that he has versatility with where he can block and all that. He could be a big help. Cole Turner just did not develop, and he's not going to develop as a blocker, and certainly not as an inline guy. He's limited as to what he can do, which is a shame because when he first got here, it looked like he could be a help as a receiver, and it just hasn't really developed that way. Armani Rogers still around, but you can't count on him because they don't even know him yet, right? So I liked him going at this point last year. It was just the injury that happened after that, but I liked him at this point. I don't know how he fits with this group, but I would count him. He's a bonus, even if, listen, you still need him to develop as a tight end. So I think that's okay. But this guy, I think it's another good pick, and it fills a need. We all knew that they wanted another tight end, and he's good at contested catches. I think that'll be a good thing too. So I think it fills a need and a good pick. So let's go on to the next one. They have Brandon Coleman. He was listed as a guard in some areas, a tackle in other. They see him as a tackle. And I did I'm going to show you tell you what one offensive line coach told me about him. And because I asked him real quick, it's like he can play either tackle or guard, tremendously athletic, has flexibility to fit in where needed. It called it an excellent value pick. So we'll see. We'll see, because he played both. But again, they see him as a tackle, and he did play at TCU, played both, and a lot of experience in both spots. They need that tackle. He needs to come through. Listen, the guy's a good athlete, 34-inch vertical, 4.99 in the 40, played basketball. So you know that the guy's going to have good footwork, has good foot speed, good length, can play with some powerful, some good lateral mobility, all that stuff. Those are all the things that people describe him as or use to describe his game. So I think the interest, here's the thing, 3rd round picks, it's hard to come in as left tackle and start as a 3rd round pick. We'll see what he can do. They do have Cornelius Lucas, who can come in, and Adam Peters said he felt comfortable with him starting. I think as a short-term starter, yes, that's fine. But as a long-term guy over the course of the year, you need this kid to come in and play. Now, they did draft Jayden Daniels last year. This was not the group that drafted him. He did not show anything in camp where you say, hey, this kid could be a starter within a year or two. He did not show that. He had showed some improvement at the end of the summer, but he did not show that he could ascend to a starting role. So they need this guy to develop their, because they don't have that. You have a rookie quarterback. You have to do things, surround him with some good offensive talent, skill position, but you got to protect him. So if you don't do that, if this kid can't be the answer, then there's some problems. But again, I think the description of him is offers some intrigue to get it done. I don't know if he's going to get it done. I don't know. I told you what the one line coach said. I don't know if this is a really good pick or not, but I do know that they feel like he can play tackle. And so I think that's what they need to see. And if there will be a second wave of free agency after the draft, and that's where, again, they got Charles Leno after the draft a couple of years ago. So there are going to be some guys that come available, but it's hard to rely on that. So they need this guy, and they need to develop him. And that's one thing with Bobby Johnson, the rep in New York, is that he didn't develop these linemen. But they have Donald Stapleton, whose reputation in their eyes is that he can develop offensive linemen. So that's going to be his task, is getting this kid ready. And ideally, you'd like to see him be a day one guy. Hard to be that guy, but you'd like to see him then ascend to a starting role at some point in their rookie year, and the sooner, the better, because you want to protect this kid. And Cornelius Lucas can handle this for a little bit, but I don't think you want him starting long-term, and you need this kid to start long-term. So, and then the last one is Luke McCaffrey, who is, yes, the brother of Christian McCaffrey. And of course, Adam Peters has some ties to that family because he was in San Francisco when they traded for Christian McCaffrey a couple years ago. Now, Luke he got good size, 6'2". He's going to play in the slot. And Peter said that he felt like he runs like a guy who's more like 5'10" versus 6'2". In other words, he's quick, and he's new to the position. He played quarterback at Nebraska, so they felt like he's an ascending player, and they liked what they saw from him at the Senior Bowl. And McCaffrey, we talked to him afterwards and even asked him, like, where did you improve as a receiver this year? Like the first year, he said, you're just trying to get used to running the routes, running it, being the fundamentals of the position. Then the second year you can start to play. First year you got to learn, again, run routes, how to get off press coverage. That's going to be a key for him, is getting off press coverage, because if you can do that, I think he can really contribute. But that's going to be, so they feel like he's an ascending player because of that. And Peters even joked that, yes, Christian McCaffrey did give him some insight, but also maybe a little bit of encouragement to try and draft him. But as Peter said, he didn't need the encouragement because he liked him, and he knows the family well. So it helps when you know the family, not because you're like, oh, I'm going to take him because of that, but it's certainly, where they're coming from and what kind of person you're getting in that room. So that's all good. We'll see. Can he be that third receiver where they need him to be? Because they don't have that guy. You have Terry McLaurin, but Jahan Dotson, you got to have that big year. And I still believe that kid can play. But we got to see the production that's commensurate with where you were picked. And we haven't seen that yet. And then De'Ami Brown, same thing. He has the speed, can get deep, but it hasn't been consistent ever. So can it be this year? We'll see. But that's why they need this kid to come in and help, because Terry McLaurin can't keep doing it on his own. I also think it'll be interesting when you look at this offense, because you can use Austin Eckler, you can use Zach Ertz, and you're going to want to use Sanad and to help offset. And then again, the run game. That's going to be a big key in this. And that's where, again, Sanat helps as well because of his blocking ability. But McCaffrey, can he ascend to that third receiver role? We shall see. Anyway, that's wrapping up day 2. Productive day for them. They have 3 picks on Saturday. Still some more things they need to, I don't even know about need to fill. You're not looking for needs to fill. You shouldn't be looking just for needs to fill in the draft anyways, but certainly not in the last couple of rounds. They have 2 in the 5th, 1 in the 7th. At those spots, you're taking guys that you can hope develop into something down the road, or maybe help on special teams if they make it, whatever. But you're not looking to fill holes with those picks as much as you are looking, again, just find some guys that may have a chance to make your roster and to develop and help you down the road. So my eyes are about to shut, folks, because it's been a long day. I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm going to wrap up the draft. You'll hear that Sunday morning. I'll talk to you next time.